Salut les becos et les beligos. Moi c'est Brian and I've lived in France for almost 3 years now, but sometimes I still feel like an absolute fraud when it comes to speaking French. J'ai rencontré beaucoup de Français, Belges et Suisses francophones ces 2 dernières années qui m'ont dit que je parle très bien français, surtout quand ils découvrent que je parle français de base, et à chaque fois ça me fait très plaisir, mais le problème c'est que je sais que c'est pas totalement vrai. Alors je m'explique. So my French learning journey started in 2020 back when I was living in New York during the lockdowns. I took online French classes through my university for about 2 semesters, I think, which meant I learned a lot of grammar with almost zero actual speaking. But it did get me one important thing, which was a spot to study abroad in France. During that study abroad semester in spring 2022, I had to take even more French classes in my host university, and by the end of it, I did solidify my knowledge of French grammar, and I did get somewhat more comfortable speaking it as well, because you had to speak to the professor in French, or else. This exchange convinced me to move to France to study full-time later that year, and this time I wasn't just surrounded by other exchange students, which meant that I finally made my first French friends. Thanks to this, I got even more comfortable speaking French, at least in a casual setting, but eventually I had to find an internship to graduate from the program that I was in, and this just made me realize how absolutely hopeless I was in professional French. Dude, I took hours writing cover letters, and I bombed every single interview I had, and yet somehow I was still lucky enough to find a PR firm that took me on anyway, despite the fact that I could barely speak coherently during both of the interviews I had with them. I guess they just saw something in me, and I am forever grateful for that. So, Joanna, if on the off chance that you're watching this, appreciate you. Anyway, I was fully immersed in corporate French every day, and it was probably the most mentally draining experience or period of time that I've had in my life because I never really knew what was going on. Like, I was constantly getting bombarded with new vocabulary, and I basically went home with a headache every day because I was just so overwhelmed with all this new information. But I persevered, and at the 3-month mark of that internship, something clicked. Suddenly, I didn't need 10 seconds anymore to load up whatever I had to say in my brain before saying it out loud. I could pretty much match the pace of most French people around me. And it was this moment in June 2023 where I felt like I could finally call myself fluent in French. Thanks to this experience, I was able to, handle everything in my daily life really smoothly, and it was also very easy for me to move to other countries in Europe that speak French, like Belgium, for example. Whenever I was traveling outside of the Francophone sphere, I'd always get so excited to meet other French people or French speakers so that I'd have a chance to use my French, and I constantly got complimented for my accent, and it really boosted my confidence. I was also consuming more and more native French content online, and the feeling of unlocking a whole new world made me feel so proud of myself for reaching that level of fluency, especially since it was such a slow burn to get to that point. I was patting myself so much on the back for this, but unfortunately, I recently realized that I'd become complacent and that I hadn't progressed in any meaningful way since reaching that milestone more than 2.5 years ago now at this point. About a month ago or so, I saw a starling murmuration right above Lyon-Badieu station, and after being mesmerized by it for like 10 minutes or so and researching why it happens, I remember thinking to myself, now how can I explain this in French? Like, not even the scientific reasons behind it, but like, what was happening right there in front of my eyes, in the sky? Like the birds swirling around. And I just couldn't. I didn't even know where to begin. Even after thinking really hard about it for like a couple of minutes, the explanation that I had in French was nowhere near as precise as what I could instantly say in English. This moment really exposed something for me, that my fluency in French kind of falls apart whenever I have to talk about abstract or technical things that go beyond everyday life. The thing is that if someone were to explain this phenomenon to me in French, or if I had to read about it in French, I don't think I'd have an issue understanding any of it. But the problem is, if I had to explain this back to someone else, if I had to reproduce what I had just learned, I probably wouldn't be able to do it anywhere near as precisely. This made me realize that even though I could absorb very high-level French input, my output, on the other hand, is actually lagging very far behind. This is the biggest struggle that I have with French after years of integrating into French society, and there's no easy fix for this because, number one, most of my friends in France are internationals, and number two, even with the French friends that I do have, I never talk about stuff like this with them. Like, when am I ever going to bring up murmurations in a conversation? But what I have found so far to be the best solution for this is to have conversations on these specific topics with native speaking teachers on language learning platforms like italki, the sponsor of today's video. italki is an online language learning platform that offers personalized one-on-one lessons with native speaking teachers. By having real conversations with real-time feedback and guidance from language experts, you can seriously speed up your progress in listening and speaking. And you get to immerse yourself in a wide variety of cultures and languages without living overseas. To show you what an italki lesson looks like, here's a clip from a lesson with my teacher Fanny.
Des milliers d'oiseaux qui volaient dans le ciel et en anglais on dit swirling. Je savais pas comment on le dit en français.
Tourbillonner, alors c'est en forme de cercle.
C'est ça le mot que je cherchais, tourbillonner.
Personally, I find that with a native speaking teacher constantly giving me detailed feedback on every word I say and how I say them, it's just by far the most efficient way to expose gaps in my fluency and improve the quality of my output.
Pour que la majorité de ton argent dépasse l'inflation, parce que dans un compte épargne,
Sur un compte épargne.
The platform is super easy to use. With over 1,000 French teachers to choose from, many of whom are also certified in English, you can easily find the right teacher with the right approach for you. You also have total flexibility since there's no subscription required. Instead, you pay per lesson, which means you can learn at your own pace with zero pressure. 2026 is here, and if your New Year's resolution is to learn a new language, click the link in the description to start your language learning journey now. You can use my exclusive code BRIAN2026 when you buy your first $10 worth of italki credits to get another $5 for free to put towards your first lesson. This offer is only available for the first 50 users though, so make sure to act fast if you don't want to miss out. Alright, let's get back into the video. Moving on to my second major limitation in French. Remember how I said I got fluent in a corporate environment? Yeah, basically what that means is that I got good at communicating in a French that's very proper and practical. But the flip side of that is that I was also kind of conditioned not to use colloquial French. Even with really common slang words like du coup, genre, carrément, grave, crever, cramer, bosser, taf, bouffer, kiffer, I never say any of these. I remember the concept of verlan being a pretty big deal when I first started learning French, but believe it or not, besides the word meuf, I've never, not even once, used verlan in the entirety of my 3 years living in France. That's not to say that French people don't use them, because I do hear ouf, relou, and chelou pretty much daily, but I think that subconsciously, my brain just blocks out any word that doesn't feel appropriate enough for the office, and so using these words never come naturally to me, even when I'm somewhere casual like a bar or something. I also feel like it's easier to just use the standard version of a word instead of memorizing 5 other ways to say it just to sound a bit cooler, but hey, maybe that's just me. A very common greeting that I get when I go to the gym is la forme. But again, because I can't use that in an office, it's like my brain just blocks it out from existing in my vocabulary. Obvious exceptions for complaining or swearing, of course, because at the end of the day, we still have to let our emotions out, and you can't really speak French without saying putain or merde, can you? Another thing I think I'll probably never be able to match a French person at are idiomatic expressions. Almost every time someone throws one of these out in the middle of a conversation, I get so lost and I have to stop the entire conversation just to ask for the meaning. I've learned quite a few at this point, but the list just seems endless, I keep hearing new ones every week. I looked up a list of these expressions for this video, and besides the really basic or practical ones like tomber dans les pommes and poser un lapin, I had no idea at all what most of these meant. I feel like a big part of French humor and charm are based on these expressions, not to mention wordplay as well, so unfortunately, I guess my charisma in French is kind of capped at a certain level. One last aspect of French that I'm still hopeless at are the literary tenses. I never took advanced French classes here, but I have a Polish friend who had to, and I still remember her complaining to me about how complicated passé simple was. The most advanced grammar I'd ever gotten to in French were the conditionnel passé and the subjunctive, and at that point I already knew everything I needed to speak the language, so I was like, what do you mean you have more tenses to learn? Turns out, books in French have their own set of tenses that are completely separate from everyday speech. And that is the reason why, to this day, I've never read a book in French because I still don't know the passé simple. I looked up a few examples of it for the video, and it just threw me off so much, what is this? Apparently, it's one of the most complicated tenses in French too, so I guess I just still can't be bothered to put in that much more effort for something optional. I'll have to start reading French literature eventually though if I want to write French at a native level, which I'm still very, very far away from being able to do. So this is definitely not something that I'll be putting off forever, for sure. So yeah, those are the 3 things that I still struggle with today in French as someone who became fluent as an adult learner. I hope you got something useful out of this video, and if not, I hope that it was entertaining enough. And don't forget, if you want to start learning French on italki, use my code Brian2026 when you buy your first $10 worth of credits, and you'll get an extra $5 for free if you're one of the first 50 people. Check out some of my other videos right here or here, and yeah, until next time, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye now.